Hey guys, how's it going? Decided I want to talk a little bit about magic. What is magic? Well, magic is something cool. Magic is commonly defined as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Any required change may be effected by the application of the proper kind and degree of force in the proper manner and through the proper medium and to the proper object. Magic is the science of understanding oneself and one's conditions. It is the art of applying that understanding in action. Now, most of this stuff is written by Crowley, Book of Magic. And apparently there are about 9 different techniques of magic, which I want to explain a little briefly about. A little bit of each one's. And magic is a paranormal thing, and paranormal things are things that normal people don't see as normal. But it does make a lot of sense. I've done a lot of study on it, and as well as Satanism and such, but we can get into that later. Now, let me get into the techniques of magic. There are several ways to view what magic is, and again, at its most broad, it can be defined as any willed action leading to intended change. It can also be seen as the general set of methods used to accomplish the great work of mystical attainment. At the practical level, magic most often takes several practices and forms of ritual, including banishing, invocation, and evocation, Eucharistic ritual, consecration and purification, astral travel, yoga, sex magic, and divination. Now, I'm going to go into each one of these individually. First one is banishing. Now, the purpose of banishing rituals is to eliminate forces that might interfere with a magical operation. They are often performed at the beginning of an important event or ceremony, like before a wedding, or even at a funeral. Now, the area of effect can be a magic circle, a room, or the magician himself. The general theory of magic proposes that there are various forces which are represented by the classical elements: air, earth, fire, and water, the planets, the signs of the zodiac, just about everything that's astral. So, now in the banishing ritual of the pentagram, we not only command the demons to depart, but invoke the archangels and their hosts to act as guardians of the circle during our preoccupation with the ceremony proper. In order to elaborate ceremonies, it is usual to banish everything by name. Each element, each planet, and each sign, perhaps even the Sephiroth themselves. All are removed, including the very one we wish to invoke, for that forces as existing in nature is always impure. But this process, being long and wearisome, is not altogether advisable in actual working. It is usually sufficient to perform a general banishing and to rely upon the aid of the guardians invoked. The banishing ritual of the pentagram is the best to use. So, those who regard this ritual as a mere device to invoke or banish spirits are unworthy to possess it. Properly understood, is the medicine of metals and the stone of the wise. which is written in that book. Let's see. Now the next one is purification. Now, purification is similar to banishing, but it's more rigorous process of preparing the self and your temple for serious spiritual work. So it's usually done by undergoing a complicated series of prayers, and purification would be like putting yourself on a diet, fasting, abstinence, keeping the body meticulously tidy, and undergoing a series of prayers. So it actually has to do with physical purification, cleaning your mind, body, and spirit. So the next one is consecration, and consecration is an equally important magical operation. It is essentially the dedication, usually of a ritual instrument or space, to a specific purpose. So the ritual here in question should summarize the situation and devote the particular arrangement to its purpose by invoking the appropriate forces. Let it be well remembered that each object is bound by the oaths of its original consecration as such. Thus, if a pinnacle has been made sacred to Venus, it cannot be used in an operation of Mars. That would make sense. Now, invocation. Invocation. I like this one. Invocation is the bringing in or identifying with a particular deity or spirit. Now, the two keys to success in this arena: to inflame thyself in praying, and to invoke often spirits. The single most important invocation, or any act of magic for that matter, was the invocation of one's holy guardian angel or secret self, which allows the adept to know his or her true self, your good side, which is always a good thing. And it is very common in magic with magicians that they personally know their guardian angel and their guardian demon, but they have more conversations with their guardian angel. But anyways, the experience of invocation is kind of like, it kind of goes like this. The mind must be exalted until it loses consciousness of self. The magician must be carried forward blindly by a force which, though in him and of him, is by no means that which he is in normal state of consciousness calls I. Just as the poet, the lover, the artist is carried out of himself in a creative frenzy, so it must be for the magician. In the great essentials, these three methods are one. There are three main categories of invocation: devotion, where identity with the god is attained by love and by surrender, by giving up or dissolving all irrelevant and illusionary parts of yourself. Second one is calling forth, where identity is attained by paying special attention to the desired part of yourself. And drama, where identity is attained by sympathy. It is very difficult for the ordinary man to lose himself completely in the subject of a play or of a novel, but for those who can do so, this method is unquestionably the best. So, now, they can also summon gods and things like that. So, anyways, the other one is evocation, where To invoke is to call in, and to evoke is to call forth. This is the essential difference between the two branches of magic. In invocation, the macrocosm floods the consciousness. In evocation, the magician, having become the macrocosm, creates the microcosm. You invoke a god into the circle, you evoke a spirit into the triangle. Basically. Evocation is used for two main purposes: to gather information and to obtain the services or obedience of a spirit or a demon. Now, the next one is astral travel. Astral travel is cool because I can do that. But it mostly has to do with leaving your body and going into the astral realm, where just about anybody can be contacted there. Demons, angels, ghosts, spirits, are ghosts. Spirits, ghosts, same thing. Gods, goddesses, you name it, it's probably there. And you can access different worlds and such like that. Visit on different grounds, and you can go around Earth and visit people you already know. That's an extension to astral travel. That's more like remote viewing, but we can get into that later. Alright, the next one is Eucharist. Eucharist originally comes from the Greek word for thanksgiving. However, within magic, it takes on a special meaning: the transmutation of ordinary things, usually food and drinks, into divine sacraments, which are then consumed. The object is to infuse the food and drink with certain properties, usually embodied by various deities, so that the adept takes in those properties upon consumption. Now, this kind of relates to people that like to pray over their food. A lot of people report that if you say a small prayer over your food before you eat or before you drink something, anything, that usually you get something positive out of it. And they did this test with water. Scientists wrote on a water bottle, "I love you," and marker, right? And then took another water bottle and put, "I hate you." Put it in the freezer, looked it up under a microscope, and saw that the bottle that said "I love you" formed very, very complex pattern of crystals. The other one that says "I hate you" formed ugly looking, totally disorganized crystals. So, if praying over your food makes it taste better, then go for it. Anyways. Now, practicing this kind of ritual, the magician becomes filled with God, fed upon God, intoxicated with God. Little by little, his body will become purified by the internal lustration of God. Day by day, his mortal frame, shedding its earthly elements, will become in very truth the temple of the Holy Ghost. Day by day, matter is replaced by spirit, and the human by the divine. Ultimately, the change will be complete. God manifest in flesh will be his name. The next one is yoga. Yoga is not considered to be magic per se by those who are really familiar with it, but it is necessary training of the body and the mind to allow for certain types of illumination of the soul and the person himself to take place. Simply put, the goal is the control of the mind. To increase concentration and to be able to enter different states of consciousness. When developing his basic yogic program, Crowley borrowed heavily from many other yogis such as Patanjali and I don't even know how to say these words. Yajnavalkya or something like that. I don't know, some people know that. It involves several key components. The first is asana, which is the assumption after eventual success of an easy, steady, and comfortable posture so as to maintain a good physique, which complements the high level of enlightenment and that meditation is accompanied with. The next is pranayama, which is the control of breath. The yogis believe that the number of breaths a human takes are counted before one is even born, and thus by controlling the intake, one may also be able to control the life by number of breaths. That's interesting. Mantras is another way, and then it goes on to describe a few other ones. Yoga is pretty good. I've seen people do yoga. The next one is divination. The art of divination is generally employed for the purpose of obtaining information that can guide the adept in his quest. The underlying theory states that there exists intelligences either outside of or inside the mind of the diviner, and that can offer accurate information within certain limits of using a language of symbols. Normally, divination is within magic is not the same as fortune telling, which is more interested in predicting future events. Rather, divination tends to be more about discovering information about the nature and condition of things that can help the magician gain insight and to make better decisions. So, and you can use astrology, bibliomancy, reading random passages from a book, such as the Religious or the I Ching, tarot, a deck of 78 cards, each symbolic meaning, usually laid out in a meaningful pattern. And geomancy, the method of making random marks on paper or an earth that results in a combination of 16 patterns. I like doing that. I make random marks in earth. And there's other magical practices like the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. The Kabbalah, and it says the same thing. That's the Jewish book, and that's the next study up to Magick, which is pretty interesting that a lot of the religions that I've been looking at, they all have some kind of hint of magic in there. Now, the Bible is the only thing that I see that God tells everyone not to use magic. But a lot of people use it anyway, so it doesn't look like it's bad. It's not something, I mean, I'm interested in it, but, I got other things to do than to play around with magic. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting subject. But, magic is a real thing. I don't need people to prove it to me to make sure it's real. I already know it's real. I mean, think about it. Who knew that you could create the color blue or red? Interesting, ain't it? Hell, if I can create the color blue, what else could I do? What else could I do? Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that. Again, I'm gonna talk on another topic later. I just want to get a couple videos out tonight to entertain the crowd. That and to keep my own records, because that's really what I'm doing this for, myself. Trying to make sure everyone gets along around here. Anyways, as always, don't be mean, play nice.